Well, hello again, slot car fans. This is the latest video in the series that I'm doing on home builds. So, cars that you build yourself, paint yourself, finish off with decals and stickers, etc. That you do it yourself before you race the car. And this particular video is going to be about Waterslide decals. It's not a technique video, so I'm not going to be going into the technique of laying down decals on a body. What I'm going to be doing is just basically positioning Waterslide decals in relation to other techniques that you can use. So with that, let's do a very quick recap on the other techniques that we've talked about so far. I'm not going to go back as far as the scratch building. I'm only going to talk about the finishing of the car, so that the paint job. So the first one we did was the white kit. So a white kit, some decals, stickers, whatever, a bit of clear coat, and go. A nice, easy, quick way of getting a personalised and pretty acceptable result for a race car. Okay, the next one was stickers, and so the example I used was this NSR with a yellow moulded body, and I just put the black stickers over the top. So I went to a supplier to get the Benton and Hedges stickers because I wanted to do Damon Hill's Jordan from '98, yeah, pure and simple. Put the stickers in place manually, and you're good to go. That was stickers. During the same video as I did the stickers, I also mentioned a different way of applying stickers, which was to a Lexan body. So here's the car that I used as the example in that video. The stickers are applied to the inside of the body shell, and so is the paint to the inside. And the reason for that is then that they're protected from bumps and scratches and impacts, etc. And also the Lexan gives a very nice finish. Okay, so you don't need to use a clear coat, which is a real advantage for someone like me. So yeah, you put the stickers on first on the inside so they show through. Then you mask the window so they don't get paint on them at all. Then you put the paint on the inside. The paint sits underneath the sticker, so the sticker shows through first and the paint second afterwards. And then you unmask the windows. You take the masking off the windows, and you're left with clear windows, a base colour, and the artwork that you want for your car. Okay, so yeah, the stickers need to be reversed because they're going on the inside of a body shell, not on the outside. But if you use a supplier who knows about such things, he'll know exactly what. If you just tell him it's for a Lexan body, he'll know exactly what you mean. Okay, so yeah, Lexan bodies with stickers. Another technique that I mentioned at the time was tampo printing or pad printing. I'm not going to talk about it too much, except to say that it's much more for a mass production environment or a semi-mass production environment. So you might go to a print shop and get you might get some pens printed up with your company logo on it or something like that, and you do a batch of 200. Pad printing, tampo printing is ideal for that. Okay, for the one-off stuff that we're talking about, tampo printing is not so applicable. And the final one that I didn't really mention at all is stencils and masking. So you can use masking tape to create straight or curved lines on a body shell, and you can you can spray over the top of that. You would then remove the masking tape, and the underlying colour is protected, and you have a nice clean border between what you did mask and what you didn't mask. So masking's nice. Stencils are like a smaller form of that. A good example of a stencil would be the Apple logo. So if you had an Apple sticker, then it would be in two parts. One would be the main Apple part itself, and the other one would be the little leaf that goes to form the Apple logo. And you would position those, you'd peel those off the backing paper, you'd stick them on your car on top of the base colour that you wanted. So the car would be already in its base colour, let's say white. Put the sticker down, and then you spray over the top in the colour that you want the car to actually look. So let's say that's in a red. Then you peel, when the paint is a little bit dry or halfway dry, peel the sticker off, both elements of the sticker, the Apple sticker, peel them off, and what you're left with is a white apple on a red car. And it's great because there's no material left on the car. Basically what you've got is a white shadow because the paint couldn't get through the sticker, the stencil. So that's stenciling. Very powerful technique, as with masking. Not one for beginners. If you've got a really simple sticker, give it a go. The Apple sticker is a good example. If you just want to put an Apple logo on the roof of your car, use a stencil. Remember to mask everything else, cover everything else, but what you peel off is what you're left with for the design. So yeah, that's stenciling and masking. Good techniques. They both require quite a bit of planning. If you're working in two colours, the colour underneath the stencil and mask and the colour that gets sprayed, if it's just a two colour paint job, there's less planning involved. As soon as you go to three colours, it gets infinitely more difficult and does require a lot of planning. So yeah, give it a go by all means, but like I say, not really for the beginners if you're going to do a multicolour stencil or multicolour paint job, but practice makes perfect, so maybe you want to jump in there. And the last one I'm going to come to obviously is the subject of today's video, which is Waterslide decals. My personal favourite, probably because when I was a kid I was making World War II planes, and all the military insignia were in Waterslide decals, and they look really nice when you put them down over the top of the camouflage you painted by hand. So I really like Waterslide decals. So let's look at the pros and cons, because that's what the video is about today. The video is about Waterslide. So let's look at the pros and cons. For me, they give the best result. They sit flat, and if you've got a good supplier, the color saturation's good. They're strong. Hopefully, they're thin, because you want thin because you want them to sit down. All of that contributes to the end quality of what your project is supposed to look like. So the end result for me is always best with Waterslide decals. I think if you're a skilled painter, then you probably could get some really good graphic work with stencils and masking. But for prescribed artwork, like a company logo, such as the Shell logo on top of the Lexan body I showed you, or if it's the Martini logo, or if it's some specific text that goes on a car in a particular font, you're going to struggle with stencils and masking to achieve those, and that's when Waterslides really come into their own, when you've got a bit of really complex artwork. And again, depending on who your supplier is, the artwork quality can really make a car paint job pop. It really can, and I'll hopefully persuade you of that with some examples later. And flexibility, you've got a lot of flexibility with Waterslide decals. You can cut them to the exact shape that you want. If a particular piece of artwork has to go into a specific recess on a body, you can cut it to the exact shape of that recess and then put it in, and it'll sit in there nicely. Now you can do that with stickers as well. This isn't a particular unique to Waterslides, but it's just one of the strengths that I want to mention. Another one is that they will actually conform to 3D surfaces, whereas stickers won't so much. Stickers are thicker, and therefore they're not so willing to be pushed around and bent into shape. Waterslide decals, being so much thinner, you can actually get them to conform to three-dimensional surfaces, three-dimensional curves, a lot better than probably any other medium. Stencils and masking are really good for 3D surfaces, but Waterslides, for me, they're a nice compromise. It's ready made by your supplier. You put it down and you can make it conform to those 3D surfaces. They are not ultimately flexible. You can't take a straight piece of Martini stripe and wrap it around a ball and expect to have a superb result. You won't. Car bodies are all three-dimensional curves. They're all pretty curvy today, and you'll find that stencils will do the job on 99% of the curves that you find on slot cars, especially 1/24ths. If you've got a hard body 1/24th, Waterslides are great. 1/32nd, the curves are a bit tighter because the scale is smaller, but still applies. You've got that flexibility with Waterslides. You can make them bend to a three-dimensional surface. One of the cons it's a complex process. It can be a complex process. Depending on where you're laying the decal down, it can be complex. If it's a simple stripe down the middle of the car, it's pretty simple. Clean it, cut your stickers to length, the length of the boot lid, the roof and the bonnet, and then apply them in order, make sure they're aligned, and put some clear coat over the top when it's all dry. And it's as simple as that. It really is. Make sure there's no air bubbles underneath. I'm beginning now to describe the multi-stage process that is Waterslide decals. You don't want air bubbles underneath, so you've got to push them out, push them to one side. You've got to position the Waterslide decal so it's aligned with exactly where you want. A stripe down the middle of the car, you want all of the stripes, the individual stripes, to be aligned. Otherwise they're going to look like that, and you don't want that. Examples like that, that you can't do with other things. So, the stickers that we mentioned, the peel and stick stickers, you put it down, it's in its final position. That's it. It is where it is. You put it there, and you can't move it around. You probably could if you've got a knowledge of solvents, but I don't, and I don't really want to go there, because if I want to go there, I'll use water slides. So with water slides, you have a little bit of time before it sets and everything to move the decal around into its final position, which is great for things like, the Porsche logo on the front of your Porsche, or the alignment of a stripe, or the alignment of a decal with a body feature like an air inlet or something like that. So they're very good in that sense. There's a bit of cleanup involved, and there are consumables. So when I say consumables, I mean things like cotton buds, Q-tips, cocktail sticks for whatever, lots of paper towels, consumables like these two semi-solvents, as it were. This one is for preparing the surface, and you also put a little bit down on top of the decal when it's in its final position to set it in place. This one is for partially dissolving the vinyl so that you can actually wrap it around curved surfaces, which, as you know, is a big thing for me because I talk about it so much. But curved surfaces are, a big subject in when you're putting decals down. And another con for Waterslide decals is they can be a bit fragile. And this manifests in two areas. One is during the application process. If the vinyl is too thin, a decal can break up while you are applying it. If you're trying to maneuver it into its final position, and suddenly the glue sets on one part of the decal and you're still trying to move it, you can actually break the decal. And that can be a very stressful, frustrating moment in time as you try to recover that. It can be recovered with experience. You can do it. But all the time that you're fixing it, you're in stress mode because you're thinking, I don't want to ruin this decal because I don't have another one. I've taken it off the sheet and this is the only one I've got and I've got to get it right. So it can be a bit stressful. It is a possibility. As you get more experience with water slides, it happens less and less. But in the early days, you might experience that. The other area when fragility shows up is obviously if you've got a race car and it takes a hit, there's a possibility that decal is going to get damaged. Now you can protect them with clear coat and it does work, but it doesn't work 100%. It works 90% or whatever. And that 1 in 10 hit that you get, which is a real frontal impact into the door of your car, and you've got a nice decal on the door of your car, there's a very good chance that decal is going to get damaged. The impact will punch through the clear coat and make its way onto the decal, and whatever the impact decides is going to happen is going to happen. So they can be a bit fragile. So with that, let's look at some examples, and I'll just quickly go back to one of the ones we looked at before just to illustrate that damage point that I made. So you can see the stripe on the bonnet here. There's a chip there. Now I wasn't expecting to get a chip there at all. I thought this was a pretty safe area for a decal, but nonetheless I got a chip here. I've got another one on the door here. The car took a side impact and chipped away at the decal underneath the clear coat there. So there is clear coat on top of these decals. That's why they're so tough, but not that tough. Okay, so yeah, it does happen. And I'm going to make a point here, and that is, if you do a good job on your paint job and you really like it and you think to yourself, I hope it doesn't get damaged, don't race it. Okay, do another one. Buy a white kit, do another one. Okay, because you're going to be very disappointed if that car takes damage in a race. And a race is an environment where you have to accept the possibility that your car is going to take damage. So I did this paint job, and I put it on the car, and I put it on the racetrack, and I knew that there was a possibility that it might take damage. And you know that it happens in other areas as well. This car's got a wing mirror missing. You know, this rear wing has been knocked off so many times I can't remember. These dive planes are missing. You know, here's the dive planes as they should be, but these dive planes are missing because of the impacts that the car has taken. And it's the same with a paint job. If you feel strongly that you don't want your paint job to be damaged, don't race it. It's not worth it. It's really not worth it. You know, what's manifesting here is that you're taking pride in something you've done and you don't want to get it compromised, which is perfectly understandable. So don't race it. I race mine because I know I can always redo it if I want to. Yeah. So I'm not upset that this car's damaged. I was a bit disappointed on the day, but you know, hey, I'm not upset. It's a race car, and race cars are different to display cars. So that's just to illustrate the point about damage being taken. It happens, okay. Another car that I've done, and this one I'm going to use to illustrate the point about mapping a flat decal that comes off of a flat sheet of paper onto a three-dimensional curved surface. And it's a Revo Porsche GT2. We decided in our club we wanted a completely level playing field, so the only car that was eligible in our Revo series was the Porsche 911 GT2. Very curvy body, not great for paint jobs, but hey, I like a challenge, so I went for it. And this is the Coke Porsche that you will have seen potentially in the IMSA series in the US. So this car would run around Daytona or Sebring in the IMSA class. There were a couple of them, a 911 and 912, with Coke liveries like this. And yeah, it's a simple paint job in that it's red, you know, with a bit of black. So, you know, I've blacked out the window. You know, I think I painted the rear wing white. The rear window here is blacked out, so it looks, you know, carbonish, you know. But everything else is red. It's a red paint job. So that was quite nice and easy to do. And then the decals came, and this decal here, this white stripe that you see down the length of the car, it runs from that single point there at the back all the way through, all the way around here, all the way down to the front of the car. And on the decal sheet, this is one decal, and I just looked at it and I thought, I'm never going to get that down in one go. It's not going to happen. There are too many curves here. It's too big. It's expecting to be flat, and I'm going to be asking it to do every flipping way it can. So I had to cut this into 3 different sections. So this section, I think it's 4 actually, I beg your pardon. So this section here is one small section here up to the light. Section 2 starts here underneath the rear wing support, that goes all the way along here, along the side of the car, along the door, as far as the number decal here. It stops there. It restarts there, goes along here, over the front light, I beg your pardon, and it keeps going down to the Michelin sticker, and then from the Michelin sticker down to through the air dam and onto the splitter. Okay, so it's 4 different. I cut it into 4 sections. Again, I mentioned the flexibility of Waterslide decals. That's one area that you can actually cut it in that way. Now you have to be accurate. You know, I had to get it right so that this 911 sticker would then sit over the top, and you know, it would butt up against each edge. You have to do that, and you have to get it right around the light, and so on and so forth. But with time, you'll be able to do that. The area I wanted to highlight in particular was this this area here, the rear wheel arch, and also the front wheel arch. This is a flat piece of vinyl, but we've managed to get it to sit down in the contours, the 3-dimensional contours of this wheel arch. And similarly, you know, this wheel arch here, which is very big on the GT2 and very curvy, yeah. But as you can see, it's sitting perfectly flat. If you look at the glare in the light, it's sitting down perfectly flat, yeah. Even though it's a flat surface mapping onto a curved surface. Okay, so I know I keep going on about this, you know, curved surface thing, but it's a big deal. If you use stencils or masking, it's not an issue at all, because you mask and then you would spray the white and then peel it away, you know, with the red underneath. You know, that's what you do with a stencil. But with a decal, you have to force the decal to conform to these curves. But it's doable, and if I can do it, you can do it. Okay. But you can see, you know, the stickers sit really nice and flat. Sorry, the decals sit really nice and flat. There is a tiny bit of thickness to them. You can just see on that number decal there. You can see a tiny bit of thickness showing at the edge. But you know, on a race car, it doesn't show. Okay, so that's a car that I raced. It won. Now, what I like to do with a car that either wins a race or a championship, I take the decision if I want to retire it or not, because that then gives me an opportunity to do another paint job. So that's what I did with that one. I think it won its first race, and so I retired it. I didn't want it to take any damage. I was pleased with the result. It's now what we call a shelf queen, and so I did another paint job. So here's another paint job that I did, or another design that I did, and it's a design from the German GT3 series, and it just caught my eye. I just thought I loved the look of that paint job. There are probably about 100 decals on this car. Okay, the car itself is painted in two colours, white, and there is an element of black along this edge here and around the back apron there, as you can see. That was just achieved doing masking initially, and then the decals went down over the top. So all the multicolour decals that you see along the side and around the back, and all of the black, white and red excuse me, that you see, these are all decals. Okay, and again, they would have had to have mapped onto three-dimensional curves. You know, on the roof, not an issue so much. It is actually a three-dimensional curve. If you look at there's a curve across that way, and there is also obviously a curve that way, but it's gentle. So you know, a decal, even a sticker, would be able to conform to that, no problem. Yeah, but that's what you're able to do. In order to protect this, you know, I put some clear coat down over the top, a little bit more around the nose area and around the side, you know, the doors and the wheel arches, because that's going to be the area of impact if it takes a hit. Not so much on the roof. Actually, I beg your pardon. No, a little bit on the roof in case the car, you know, gets inverted and slides down the track on its roof, which happens from time to time, especially if I'm driving. So yeah, just a bit of clear coat on the areas where you think it's going to be, you know, impacted. Where you think it's safe, so you know, areas that are in a recess, a little bit less clear coat. You can get away with a little bit less. So you know, underneath the rear wing, this area here, hardly any clear coat at all, just enough to give it a gloss finish. On the nose, a bit thicker. Yeah, and that gives decals a bit of protection in a race environment. Okay. And then lastly, in that Vivo Porsche series, you know, I wanted a green car. I didn't have a green car in my stable. I wanted to do a green car, and again, this one's it's just a simple explanation. Again, you know, this Foxhill logo is a flat sticker, but somehow we've got to get it to curve around. Yeah, and there's techniques for doing that, and it works, as you can see. Next is a car that I did with decals, and I was happy to race it. You've seen this car before if you watched the videos on the road to the US Nationals 2025. This car was the car that I ended up racing. Very simple decal job in the main, in that there's a lot of fairly simple surfaces here that you're putting the decals down onto. So these decals down the side, this whole side section is pretty flat. Yeah, so you can actually put the decals down quite easily onto a flat surface. The rear wing, it does have a bit of a curve in it, a concave curve, as you can see, as you would expect a wing surface to have, but it's only in one dimension. Yeah, so putting down this whole purple colouring here is not paint, that is a decal. That is a decal. And then I used other decals, the two Jaguar logos and the Jaguar itself, the big cat itself. They were white decals that came with the decal set. So I just laid the decal on top of decal to get that design. Okay, on the nose, this is a fairly flat plane. So laying these decals down wasn't an issue. There was a bit of work to do around this curve to go to the side. You can see the yellow stripe is fairly complex. But with water slides, you know, before the water evaporates, you've got the ability to slide the decal around into its final position. And that's what I was able to do with these yellow stripes to get the exact look that I wanted. The difficulty on this particular one wasn't these decals here. These are fairly simple. This is, if you look at the line from here, the top of the engine cover, down to the bottom of the engine cover between the rear wheels, that line is a pretty straight line. This is actually a two-dimensional curve. If you look at it that way, it's actually a two-dimensional curve. These decals, the three sections that you see, the 1, 2 and 3, they went down really easily. They were not challenging at all. And again, with the glare that you can see from the lighting, they went down pretty flat as well. Yeah. A point I want to make here is the color saturation on these. This is really good color saturation. These are really good decals in that respect. Yeah, you've got good strong colors here. There's no washout at all. They're good. Now the difficulty for this particular car was the roof. The roof, you can see here, this was one big decal that was, you can see the shape of it. It goes down past the door, halfway down the door pillar here, comes back up along the edge of the window, across the edge of the window there, and back here. Not the bottom, not the sun visor, ignore the sun visor, just the edge of the window across this straight edge here. The challenge on this one was this big aero bump on the roof itself. I don't know what it's for. I'm guessing it's for communications equipment that attaches to the aerial, and they don't want it to bump in the driver's head or anything, so they put a bump in the bodywork. This decal was flat, and I had to somehow get it to conform to this very aggressive curve. I say aggressive because it's small, and small means small diameter, which means tighter, and tighter means, you know, hard work. So to get this decal to sit flat on the roof and on this bump was actually very technically difficult, but doable. Now you can see on the edge, if I just try and get the glare to line up right, there's a tiny bit of crimping on the very front edge just before you get to the window edge. And I tried my best to get rid of that, and I couldn't quite do it. And luckily it's a dark colour, so in normal mode you can't really see it. That was the challenging decal on this particular car. Most of the other stuff, with the exception of the nose area, was pretty simple. It was very quick and simple to do. Even the long yellow stripes, you know, I did them in I think I did them in 3 sections. So 3 sections for that one and 3 sections for the other one. Okay. Luckily, didn't take any damage in the race. And yeah, it worked well. Happy with that one. Probably won't race it again. Next is this one, Formula 1 car. One of my favourite Formula 1 paint jobs. The McLaren from 2021, I think, or maybe in 2020 or 2021, I can't remember. Lando Norris at Monaco. A simple paint job. This is a polycar Formula 1, simple paint job. The blue is the only paint you'll see on the car, with the exception of the black areas. So the rear of the underside of the engine cover here and the side pod, that was hand painted. So I put the blue down first, then I masked it and put this black on with a paintbrush. The rear wing was sprayed black, and then the decals were applied over the top. The front wing was sprayed black, and the decals were applied over the top. The difficulty on this car was this orange decal that you see here, trying to get it to conform to this 3-dimensional surface of the side pod. That's quite a set of curves on there. And the other one for this one would be the single decal, actually I say single, per side. So there was one decal that went on this side from the front of the airbox all the way down to just past the number 4 there at the end of the engine cover, the fin, and the same on the other side. So 2 decals to make up that, and you can see what a complex surface that is. You know, the fin is obviously flat, no problem, but when it interfaces with the airbox, the engine cover, that's when it starts to get tricky. that gets very tricky. And trying to get them to join up across the top, quite difficult. Now there's a tiny little bit crimping around the top area, yeah, but it actually does, it goes okay. So that was quite a considerably difficult decal to lay down. The one on the rear wing, pretty simple. It's only curving in one direction, yeah, and that's what I mean by a two-dimensional curve. It's only curving in the one direction, yeah. It's across the car, it's straight. The curve is front to back, yeah. So that was a really easy one to put down. The one on the nose, again, pretty easy. It's a pretty flat surface. It's curved in the one dimension, but in that dimension it's flat. So that was an easy one. The halo, that was difficult. That was extremely difficult. Required a lot of work to get that decal to conform to those curves. And equally, the front wing. The front wing was, you know, it's a multi-piece front wing. Trying to get those all that lettering to line up, you know, correctly. That was very challenging, and to get them to sit down as well, because they are curved as well as being multi-plane. They're also curved as well. So that was very challenging. But I'm pretty happy with the result. It's come out quite nicely. I don't race this car. I've run it on a track, but I don't actually race it, and I probably never will. It's not finished yet. I've got to do some of the furniture that used to sit that sits here on the 2021 cars. There were a lot of guide vanes in this area here to manage the airflow before it got to the side pod. I haven't done those yet, but I will be doing those. But this car was very challenging to lay down those decals. The surfaces are very small because it's a Formula 1 car. It's not like an LMP or a Group C. So this was a very challenging set of decals to lay down. But I was pretty happy with the result on that one. Okay, next one in this series is an LMP, and this one I wanted to concourse, and so I didn't want to race it, so I didn't. Yeah, the paint is Aston Martin paint. It's the true colour that you see on the what is it? The safety car on Formula 1. It's the proper colour. And the decals are the Formula 1 decals. So this is an Aston Martin Lola from Slotted. It was a white kit. I put the paint down and I put down the excuse me, I put down the decals on top. Now this job of decals actually isn't too bad. There's a lot of flat surfaces here. So these JCB stickers that you see on the top of the wheel arch, they were simple. They're really simple. You know, the Cognizant logo on the rear wing, really easy, and equally on the engine pod. They're easy. The Aramco ones on the side, these are flat surfaces, nice and easy. The most challenging one on this one would have been this area between the airbox and the front edge of the window, or the roof I should say. Yeah, that was the most abrupt or most serious curve that I had to deal with. But as you can see, you know, they sit down really nicely. If I try and get the glare lined up on the nose, you know, those decals are sitting down really nicely. And when you look at it, you know, as a race car on a track, you know, it works fine. Yeah. So that was that one. Like I said, I'll never race that car. I have run it on the track, got some reasonably competitive lap times out of it, while there was nobody else on the track. Thank you very much. So that was that one. And getting towards the end now, here's a car that I tried something new with. And it's this car that you see in the background here, the German GT3 series. This is an AMG Mercedes GT3. I really like it as a road car. It's got a lot of presence and it just looks really nice, I think. And the race car equally is, you know, it's a good looking race car. And I wanted to do this particular one, so that's what I did. I used some good products with this particular one. So the body shell is an NSR white kit. The paint that you see is Tamiya candy, no, not candy, I beg your pardon, not candy apple red, no, it's metallic orange. So it's got a metal flake in it. Okay, and the decals are from Slot Fabric in Germany. Very good quality decals. If I try and get the glare on the rear wing, you can see what I mean. Yeah, They are sat down really nicely. Yeah. Okay. And then some clear coat over the top. And what I was trying new with this one was this is a 2K clear coat. Now I'm not great at clear coat. It's a blind spot for me. I'm just not good at it. And for some reason I decided to try 2K on this car. And I was lucky, and it came off and it worked really well. And the thing about 2K is it's as tough as old boots. It really is. It's extremely tough, and it gives a very good clear finish when it's fully cured off. It takes a while to cure off. I mean, I'm talking like 24-48 hours, but once it's cured off, it gives a very transparent clear coat. And so that's what I did with this one. Now, why did I go to the risk of trying clear coat on a car that I put a lot of effort into? The reason is because with metallic paints, a clear coat will actually lift and enhance a metallic paint really well, because I'm guessing what happens is you get more light staying there at the surface of the paint, because the clear coat attracts it and keeps it a little bit longer, and then obviously you get more light on the paint and you get the metallic effect, you get the metal flake showing through a little bit more, which is great. So I'm really happy with this paint job. So what's the significance of the photo? Okay, I did a lot of research photos for this car to make sure I could get the decal placement correct, etc. And I do a lot of research photos when I do a build I want to take care of. This photo is not an exciting photo. It's not why would you take that photo? Well, the reason is because I've got dozens of photos of this car, and I wanted to get the sticker placement on the rear of the car. So, where does that sticker come in? Where does it fit? There's a difference. There's a Pirelli sticker here on the photo. It's very different from the sticker that I've got on my car, but it's not a huge problem. So yeah, one reason is for the decal placement. The other one is this particular body shell didn't have a diffuser, so I got this photo so I could look at the diffuser detail, and then I scratch built my own to try and replicate what I saw in the photo. So yeah, research photos, very useful, very useful. You can always go back and refer to them to say, right, where does that Battlefield 1 logo, where does it sit exactly? How close is it to the number plate, or how close is it to that recess or that edge or whatever? So that's the importance of photos like this. And like I say, for this particular car, I've probably got about 24 photos, side views, top views, views of just the rear wing end plate or something like that will give me any information I can to make the look of the car better. So yes, I also had to do the front splitter as well, because the body didn't have the splitter. The splitter was built into the chassis of the NSR, and I didn't want to cut it off the chassis. So yeah, this chassis underneath is a Plarfit chassis, Japanese manufacturer. These chassis are awesome. Lots of adjustability and heaps of performance. Perfect for 1/32 scale hard body racing. Now I'm never going to race this car. I tell a lie, I actually did race it once, but in a very controlled environment. I'm never going to race this car. I don't want the risk of it getting damaged, so I'll never race it. There are some very complex decals on this one. If you can see the black edge work along the side here of this body feature, this air outlet from the front, that is all one decal. And it took me a long time to get that exactly right, twice, in the way that I wanted it. So yeah, I put a lot of work into this one. I was very happy with the clear coat result. Don't want to jeopardize it, so I won't be. So, but that's the sort of thing that you can do. If I took this out into the sunlight, you would see this paint really come to life. The lighting in here isn't brilliant, but it's okay. But you can see exactly what it looks like. But look at the quality of the decals. They're really good. Slot fabric in Germany, like I say, very good decals. Very good. And gives me the opportunity to produce a result I'm really proud of. So that's that one. And the last one I'm going to show you is a series of cars that I started back in 2018, and it was a car that none of the slot car manufacturers were doing at that time, and I really wanted to do one of these cars. I really wanted to put one on the track or build one myself, but you couldn't buy one, so I had to do it myself. The body shape wasn't even available, let alone the paint jobs that I wanted. So I had to actually take an existing car and modify the body shape, and then put the paint job down in the final way that I wanted to. So the car in question is the excuse me, is the 2018 GTLM winner, the Pink Pig, and I wanted one of these cars in slot car form. It's a model. It'll be a display model. It's never going to be a race car. It doesn't even have a slot guide. I've taken the slot guide out. But I wanted to have one of these. Now, it took me a while to do it, and since then other manufacturers have actually made this car with varying degrees of success. So Carrera do it in 1/32 and 1/24 scale. Scale Auto do it in 1/32 scale, and NSR do it in 1/32 scale. But they don't all use an RSR body. So this is specifically the Porsche 911 RSR, and it's a very specific car, and it's the reason why I wanted to build it is because of how specific it is. The reason I say that is that Porsche actually, if you can believe this, they actually turn the engine around in the car. You know, the Porsche 911 is famous for having the engine hanging out behind the rear axle. So the weight concentration of the engine sits somewhere in this area here, because the engine sits out the back. So you've got the gearbox transaxle around here, and the engine sits here, which is not great for handling, especially when your fuel load is running down and the rest of the weight of the car is shifting a little bit. You don't want a huge amount of car weight concentrated behind the rear axle. Okay, so what Porsche did for this specific car is they turned the engine and gearbox round, through 180 degrees. So now the engine doesn't sit here, the engine sits a lot further forward. So it's a much more of a mid-engine configuration, and that gave them a competitive leg up, as it were. So it's an amazing car, and this particular car won the 2018 GTLM class, and it had a sister car which was in a Rothmans livery, and it was all about celebrating Porsche's 70 years. I think it was a 70th anniversary. It was all about celebrating that, and so they put these retro liveries on these Porsche RSRs. So yeah, I had to manufacture this car myself from a donor. So what was the donor? The donor was a Scalextric Porsche 911. This car, the Falcon car. Okay, strip the paint off, do the modifications to make it go to an RSR, not this one, which is the GT3 RS, I think it is. Go to make all those modifications. I'll come on to that next. Remove the paint, do the modifications, sand it all back, and then put some primer down. So here's the primer version, and you can see the changes. The wing mirrors are completely different. These are the RSR wing mirrors. The front lights are completely different. The fuel filler is completely different. The air intakes on the sides are different. There's this running board, if you want to call it that, and there's this detail fin here on the back. There's about 20 differences between this and the donor. There's about 20 differences, okay, to make this an RSR body. And then when you've got that, then you put down the base colour of the car itself. In this case it would be this satin pink. The light that I'm using doesn't show the colour very well. It's actually a little bit darker than this, but it is a satin finish, it's not a gloss finish. When you put down the paint, then you put down the decals, then you put down some clear coat, in this case a satin clear coat, and then you put in all of the ancillaries like the rear window, which I've tried to make it look like it's carbon. You put the rear wing on with its different rear wing mounts. The diffuser is handmade because the Scalextric version doesn't have this diffuser. Different wheels. I've used different wheels. These are much more the RSR Le Mans wheels. Dive planes at the front. As I say, the radiator, you know, and the decals across the, you know, the glass work as well. So you can see all the decals there. Each one of these decals, these lines, is a single decal. So that's not multiple decals, that is one decal. And it runs from there, it runs all the way around to there on the edge of the wheel arch. So that's one decal. So this car will have approximately 30 to 40 decals on it, all told. Okay, but I'm really happy with that as a model, as a display model. It'll never run, but you know, it'll do as a display model. And I was going here for accuracy. I wasn't going for performance of the car, obviously, because it's never going to run. I was going for paint, you know, the paintwork accuracy and the modelling accuracy. You know, these air inlets here for the turbos, they're very different from the donor car. Very different. The wing mirrors, very different from the donor car. Yeah. Okay, and you can see inside the lights, you've got those 4 LED lights that this car was famous for. Okay, so yeah, very much a model rather than a working slot car. You know, had to make the exhaust pipes myself, etc. You know, but again, lots of research photos for this. I've got lots and lots of photos of this car, probably about 30, 40. Each one telling me, you know, a little bit about decal placement on the car. Not too many curves on this one to worry about because the decals are so small that you can actually bully them into being, you know, curves and stuff. So making the curves fit on this one wasn't quite so challenging. You know, look at that one on the front wheel arch. That wasn't so much of a problem. The rear wheel arches, not too bad, not too bad. You know, they're small, short decals. So that one gave me a lot of pleasure. I was really happy with the result. And of course that car had a sister car at Le Mans, the Rothmans Porsche. So a tribute to the Porsche 956 that ran in Rothmans livery, and Porsche got a 1, 2, 3, I think was it that year, back in the 80s, I think it was. So this is a partway finished project. So 2 colour paint, white and this royal blue. Now I've chosen the blue with a metallic flake in here just because I wanted to, you know, give it a bit more pop. Obviously the real car had a flat blue, much more flat, maybe gloss, but definitely not metallic. Okay, so that's just a simple case of masking the car. So put the white down first and then mask the areas that you don't want painted. In other words, mask all the way across the roof, the rear wing, the bonnet areas that you don't want painted, and then spray with blue the rest of the car, and then take the masking off to leave the white underneath, and then you've got basically a 2-tone body, white and blue. And then over the top of that you put your decals. Yeah. Now there is a tiny bit more paint on this one, and that is the black edge on the front splitter to try and make it look a bit carbon. But all the artwork you see is decals. And the most complicated decal on this one was the Rothman stripe that runs from the edge of the light, the headlight. It runs all along in one length across these curves all the way to the rear of the car, just before the rear wing, or the rear spoiler I should say. Okay, so lots of curve transitions there. You can see, you know, it's vertical there and it's horizontal here, but because it's so narrow it doesn't actually mind being bullied into that shape. The only other complication was getting the alignment on the Rothman stripe across the roof and the rear and the nose. Can't see that one so easily. Okay, but decals. But again, these are high quality decals, these ones. These are from Slot Fabric again in Germany. And, you know, really good. They sit down very, very well. See the glare there on the front wing? You can see they're just sitting down really flat. Really flat. Do it on the roof, try and do the same. Yeah, they're sitting down really flat, really good. So yeah, that's Waterslide Decals. For me, they give the best quality finish, and I really like the results I've got. Maybe because I've used them so much in the past, but I get a lot of pleasure when I see a car transformed from being, you know, one colour to, you know, a fully spec'd paint job. And especially if it's a recognisable paint job. So that, you know, the Pink Pig Porsche, the Rothmans Porsche, the Silk Cut Jag, the Battlefield Mercedes, you know, the Shell V-Power, you know, Ford Falcon. You know, if it's a recognisable paint job, your brain naturally goes there and you know, forms the attachment to the thing that you know. So yeah, water slides, give it a go. Simplest way to do it is on a white kit. If you've never done it before, simplest way to do it is on a white kit. Once you've done one of those, you know, get another white kit of another colour that you like, spray it with one colour. You know, just do any colour that you know you feel like you want to race with, and then put your water slides down over that. Gloss paint works best. Okay, you can get matte paints obviously, and you can get semi-gloss paints and what have you. They don't work quite as well. Stickers are better in that environment. Water slides like gloss surfaces because then you can slide them around before you find their final position. But I'm going to go through that in more detail, the technique of applying decals, in a later video. So that will be a while for it to come out, but that is one that I will do in the future. So the last thing that remains is a cookie. This has been a long one. I didn't realize how long this video was going to be. So let's do the cookie quickly. There's a competition going on right now as we talk in mid-October of 2025. It's not a motor race, it's a yacht race. It's the America's Cup and it's in Barcelona. And they are racing boats that are called the AC75, the America's Cup 75. I think the 75 refers to the length of the boat in feet, I think. Go and take a look. The finals are on at the moment. They're halfway through. It's 3-all at the moment. There's 3. They do multiple races. There are the two protagonists are Great Britain and Italy, and their boats are quite beautiful. And they've won 3 races each, so it's finely poised at the moment. The race is in a really good place, and these boats are spectacular. They are the ultimate in high tech for yachting, and they shift. You know, the amount of money that was put into these boats is mind-blowing, and the results that they get are also mind-blowing. The tech is awesome. The speeds are out of this world. Imagine a 75-foot yacht that is probably 150 feet high, the mast, 8 crew members I think it is, and these boats are doing 60 miles an hour or 100 kilometers an hour in ideal conditions. That is something else, something else. They are spectacular to watch. When you see them in full flow, they're just mind-blowing. When you see them manoeuvring, yeah, they're equally good. So go and have a look at that, please. It's a great watch. They are fantastic boats. You won't believe what you're seeing when you first see it. When you first see it, you'll just say, no, that's not real. Trust me, it is. The technology has been implemented in the most amazing way to give the most amazing spectacle. Well worth a watch. So go and enjoy that one. I'm going to sign off now. So as usual, be kind to somebody today, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.